Hello everybody, this is Desmond12530 or Desmond Yugioh. Just kidding, it's Desmond Yugioh. Okay, so new thing, yay! I finally got my PC able to record, so I'm going to be recording some Dueling Book. I can actually stream now. I can do things like this, where I can play Dueling Nexus, but today we're going to be doing something special, and that is we're going to be talking about the main deck and some of the extra deck of my reformed Archetype. Only one card does not have art right now out of the ones that I have. Most of the extra deck also has stuff to it, but I'll talk about that in a minute. So, why did I rework this archetype? Well, firstly, this archetype, I guess I should go into some more about this. This archetype is actually being used for a story I'm creating at the moment. Kind of like a fan fiction, but it's more, I say, it's like an actual story. It's not, something just completely impossible happening. It's just something, in the background happening. So, what's happening with this? So, the reason why I fixed it was because originally this deck had two issues. One, it didn't generate enough resources, or when it did generate resources, it generated way too many, and it had a bunch of loops that were stupid. And two, it just wasn't really fun because the entire gimmick of them was just spammy. It was annoying. It was basically like, think of Ritual Beast, but even longer to do the exact same play. So I decided to rework them, as they were originally meant to be they were self-bouncing archetype, and that's all they did was just self-bounce. Aside from some of their other gimmicks that were a bit smaller, now they have an actual fully fleshed out gimmick. That being, they are banish-focused pendulums, which I think there's only like one in the game that works like that, and that is Metafist, their decoy dragon. But other than that, this whole entire archetype is based on banish/graveyard pendulums, and I'll explain how that works. But with that being said, today I'm just going to be doing a showcase. I wish I could do it based on level, the sort, but whatever. This will work for now. So we're going to go into our first card because this kind of sets up the archetype a little bit. So we have Marionex Ballistic. So we have Pendulum Effect. Once per turn, you can add one Marionex Pendulum monster, except a copy of itself from your extra deck to your hand, then destroy this card. Okay, so it just replaces itself. If this card is no more special summoned while you control another face-up Marionex card, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck, place one Marionex card from among, or Marionex monster from among them into your extra deck face-up. If this card is banished from your graveyard or extra deck face-up by a Marionex card, you can place this card into your Pendulum Scale. You can only use each effect once per turn. So this is where the main gimmick comes in, which is this right here, if this is banished from your graveyard or extra deck face-up. So the boss monsters have two things to them, these guys. They can synchro themselves by using one from the extra deck, up to one from the extra deck as material, so by sending it to the graveyard. And they have effects to banish ones from your extra deck for extra effects. Or just as like a secondary thing to it, so. And it says Marionex card specifically, so it can be used as cost. So, and that's sort of the big thing about this, is they have pretty generic, decent pendulum effects, but their main effects are that they have something good when summoned, and that they have something when they're banished, and they have a bunch of other consistency cards. Next up, we go up to Marionex Frost. I'm sorry for the artwork on some of these, but you cannot pendulum summon monsters except for Marionex monsters. That's a common trope with a bunch of these. Once per turn, you can shuffle one Marionex monsters, that should be a monster, in your extra deck face up into the deck. Draw one card, but discard if it is not a Marionex card. So you put one from your extra deck back, you draw a card, and then you discard if it's not. If this is Pendulum or normal summoned, you can add one Marionex normal spot from the deck to your hand. If this card is banished from a graveyard or extra deck face up by a Marionex card, you can send one Marionex monster except another copy itself from your deck to the graveyard. So it's a foolish burial that also searches when it's Pendulum or normal summoned. Now we have Nagrashta. By the way, these are all different types with dark attribute, and that's kind of one of their themes, that they're a bunch of different typed monsters. So, you cannot pendulums under some Marionex, okay. Once per turn, target one face-up card and Marionex card you control, one Marionex card in your extra deck face-up. Send the first to the graveyard. If you do, add the second to your hand. So essentially you can, and by the way, this should, instead of send, it should be destroy. I do know that. That's because the fact you can't send pendulum cards to the graveyard as cost, so just, or as something, so you can't because of this, so it would either have to be then or it'd have to be destroy, so just let me update that at some point. Again, the total levels of Marionex monsters you control is 5 or more. You can special summon this card from your hand, then you can send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard. Other Marionex monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. If this card is banished from your graveyard or extra, is banished from your graveyard or extra face up by a Marionex card, you can special summon this card but shuffle it into the deck when it leaves the field. Also, you cannot special summon monsters to the extra for the rest of this turn, except Marionex monsters. You can use each effect of Marionex Negrashta once per turn. So it's basically a light sworn monster that also summons itself multiple ways. And this is one of your bigger monsters. You need it to get into some of the higher levels, synchros, which I'll talk about that gimmick soon enough. Standard, you cannot pendulum summon. You can banish one Marionex monster from your graveyard, special summon this card. So this one triggers one of yours and it summons itself. Really good. If this card is special summoned, so by its own effect, you can special summon one Marionex monster from your hand. If you do, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except Marionex. If this card is banished from your graveyard or your extra deck face up, you can basically make a token that is the same level of the target monster's level. And then a synchro monster summon uses this card material cannot be destroyed by battle. So it gives Infect Inheritance, it gets you a token that basically it gives you 2 of the same level on the field, and it summons itself while giving you another monster from hand. Treadlock says, let's see, if you synchro summon Marionex monster, you can use this card in your scale as a level 2 monster for that synchro summon. So you can send it to the graveyard as a level 2, as 2 levels for that synchro summon. So this guy is basically just, if you can't get enough monsters on the field to get your big piece out, then you use him in the scale. If there's pendulum or normal summon, you can normal summon one Marionex monster in addition to your normal summoner set. The Marionex synchro monster summoned using this card's material gains 300 attack for each material used for its summon, so minimum 600 attack boost. If this card is in your extra face-up, banished by a Marionex card, so this is an older one, but same thing. Target one level 4 lower Marionex monster in graveyard, special summon it. So just decent card overall. Once per turn, you can send one Marionex spell or trap from your hand to the graveyard. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Add one Marionex spell or trap from among those cards to your hand, so it tags out, which is important because some of these traps and spells and traps have banish effects. If this card is special summoned or tributed, which there are ways for this card to be tributed in this archetype. There's actually quite a few. You can add one Marionex monster from your deck to your hand. A Marionex synchro monster using this card as material cannot be targeted by card effects during your turn. If this card is banished from your graveyard or face up extra deck by a Marionex card, you can shuffle up to 3 of your other banished Marionex cards into the deck. If you do, draw 1 card. So main deck is essentially just a bunch of monsters with some decent effects. Now let's go into the big thing, which is the spells and traps. So Land of the Broken Nexus, this is the field spell. Always treated as Marionex. When this card is activated, you can add one Marionex Awakening from deck to your hand. That is this card. I'll talk about that later. The first time a Marionex card is banished from your graveyard or face effects by a Marionex card, you can have all Marionex monsters you control gain 500 attack. That should be attack. And this is permanent, by the way. Once per turn, you can target a Marionex Synchro Pendulum monster in your graveyard or in your extra deck face up. Place the card into your pendulum scale. If you synchro summon a Marionex Pendulum monster, you can activate this effect. For the rest of this turn, your opponent cannot activate effects in response to your Marionex power traps. You can activate one Land of the Broken Nexus for turn, and it accidentally use each, yeah, so this line should be gone, I just accidentally forgot it. So the card search is Awakening. Add one level 4 lower Marionex monster deck to your hand, then you can banish one Marionex card from your graveyard, monster from your graveyard. You can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon one Marionex monster from your hand. You can only activate one effect per turn, once that turn. So essentially this card gets you to a search card, but it also does this so it can set up your, play later on. Marionex Reformation lands. Marionex cards in your Pendulum Scale cannot be targeted by your opponent's card effects. This is a continuous spell during your turn. Once per turn, you can banish one Marionex card in your graveyard. Yes, just once per turn, you can banish one, so trigger its effect. You can banish this card from your graveyard, draw one card, but discard if it is not a Marionex card. You can only use each effect of it once per turn. This is probably the weakest of all of them, but it does trigger all your effects for free, so that's why I kind of let it go. And this is going to be where we get into the crazy territory, because I think I'm missing a card, but I'll grab that once we get to the final one. So, Preparation for the Marionex Lords. Discard one card. You can either place one level 6 or lower Marionex Pendulum monster from your extra deck into your Pendulum Zone or graveyard, or send one Marionex card from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, add one Marionex field spell from your deck to your hand. You can activate one of it per turn. So this card's worded kind of weirdly, but essentially you can either place one Marionex from your extra deck, including your Synchros, so Synchro Pendulums. You can either place it into your Pendulum Zone, send it to the grave, or send any Marionex card from your deck to the graveyard. And if you do either one of those, add one Marionex card, or add one on Marionex field spell, cough cough. Land of the Broken Nexus, because it's always treated. And that's about it. So let me grab that card real quick. Evolution, I believe it is. There it is. So I will grab you now. So this is I guess, like one of the main playmakers of the deck. So, target one Marionex monster you control, tribute it. Then you can special one Marionex monster for your deck that is 2 levels higher than a monster. If a Marionex Synchro monster is distributed this way, you can special summon one Marionex Synchro Pendulum monster that lists that card's name in its text from your extra deck. This is treated as a Synchro summon. If this card is banished or destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can add one Marionex spell, except Marionex Nexus Evolution, from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect once per turn. Now notice how this card says banish one monster. Some of these have ways to do it, but that's where the traps come in, because the traps have ways to banish other cards. So the first one is the counter trap. If a spell or trap is activated while you control a face-up Marionex Synchro Pendulum monster, negate that effect. If you do, destroy it. Then you can shuffle one of your Marionex cards into the deck. This card's in your graveyard. You can banish this card. Reduce or increase level 1 face of Marionex monster you control by up to 3 until the end of this turn. So basically, this card just fixes your levels, and it's a spell and trap negate that also recycles. Marionex Reconstruction. You can target 2 Marionex monsters in your graveyard, including a Pendulum monster. Special summon 1 Marionex Synchro monster from your extra deck whose level equals total levels of the target monsters. Destroy a Synchro summon, then banish one of the targets, and if you do, shuffle the other into your deck. You can banish this card from your graveyard, add 1 Marionex monster from your extra deck face up to your hand. Mind you, there will be, like I said, there's other ways to banish this in the Archetype, just I haven't fixed it yet. Now we go into the extra deck where stuff gets a little bit more crazy. And time to talk about the biggest thing in this, which is the Synchro monsters. And for those that, I guess before I get into that, all of these are based on, basically the whole, I guess, like, mini lore about this is that these guys are all basically just corrupted monsters, and then the Synchros are all boss monsters they're all Synchro / boss monsters from from other archetypes that became corrupted and became this. So sort of like Malefic, but Malefic if it actually had the decency to go through with it. Obviously the Link monsters are something else, but I'll talk about that later. So Marionex or Nexus, 1 tuner plus 1 or non-tuner Marionex monsters. You're not gonna make it that way, trust me. Because if you notice, none of these are tuners, and I'll explain why right now. You can also summon this card by using non-tuner Marionex monsters you control, or by sending up to 1 Marionex monster from your X deck face up. That should be also, or also by sending 1 Marionex monster from your X deck face up to the graveyard, whose total levels equals 4. This creates Synchro Summon. If this card is Synchro Summon using no tuner monsters as material, you can banish 1 Marionex monster from your X deck face up. Then special summon 1 Marionex monster from your deck in defense position. So it banishes from your extract, but you get to special summon 1 from your deck, so it's an extender. Once per turn during your opponent's turn, you can shuffle 2 of your banished Marionex monsters into the deck, negate the next power trap card your opponent activates this turn, and if you do, destroy it. So basically this card preemptively does it, so basically you can't use it. It's not a spell and trap negate in the traditional sense. It is your next play no longer works. And then we'll get on to the final card that I'm going to showcase today, which is the Link monster. Once I get the rest of the cards up, I will do an update video. So, Marionex Precursor requires 2 Marionex monsters, Link 2, arrows down and left. Sorry if I haven't been going over the stats, but, you know, I assume people can at least look at the card. If this card is Link Summon, you can special summon 1 non-synchro Marionex monster from your face-up extract to a zone this card points to, but it cannot be used as material for a summon of a non-Marionex monster. You can target 1 Marionex synchro monster you control, add 1 Marionex monster from your deck to your hand whose level is half the level of the targeted monster, but it cannot be placed in your pendulum scale this turn. Also tribute the targeted monster. You can only use each effective Marionex Precursor once per turn. So basically what this does is if it's Link Summon, you get to get 1 from your extract for free. Then you can tribute 1 of your boss monsters. So in this case, let's say you're using Nexus, or Nexus summons out, let's just say, summons out Trias searches you a card. Then you're going to tribute Nexus, search Thalastos, or Tretalax from your deck to your hand. It's probably Thalastos. Well, actually, no, you can't because it wouldn't do it that. Yeah, so you want to grab Tretalax and you want to pendulum summon it so you get an extra normal summon, and you can see where the combos go from there. This card seems like it's not that good, but in the context of this archetype, this card and just these 2 cards alone gets you so many pluses, it's not even funny. But yeah, so that's really it for the archetype showcase for now. Once I fix stuff up, you'll actually get to see the targets for this card, as some of these cards obviously don't look like they have targets yet. But yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed me just talking about custom archetype I made. Obviously, like I said, could be better, could be worse. I just thought you guys would like to, see me do my first video on this, being one of the biggest things I do now, which is custom cards. That being said, I'll be seeing you guys all later.